Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Welcome back to the Think Factory podcast, and I'm your host, Chris Santomassimo from OGC Solutions, and we power the Think Factory podcast. And I'm excited to talk to Todd Meissner today, a friend of ours who is the president of Coloring. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's a pleasure joining you.
So, Color Ink, by the way, is, as you can guess, it's a printing and packaging business, and it's based in Sussex, Wisconsin. And Todd and I had the pleasure of getting together not that long ago at one of the packaging summits to get introduced. And I thought, Todd, your business is not only successful but pretty interesting. And I'd love to have you talk a little bit about it, talk about strengths, and introduce people that don't know Color Ink to what you do.
Yeah, sounds good. So we're a 40-year-old family-run business. My father started the company back in 1984. And for about 10 years prior to the start of the company, we were a design studio really servicing a lot of the industrial, companies based here in the Milwaukee and southeastern Wisconsin area. And back in those days, there was a lot of printing going on. And around 1985, my father decided to install a printing press, add that to the mix, and I came on board shortly after that happened, and we were able to just grow the company by leaps and bounds just because printing was just so ripe for the picking in our marketplace. And so for many years, that's what we did. We serviced kind of the local market, printing advertising materials, direct mail, sales literature, a lot of technical manuals just in the local market. And from there, we've grown to, a nationwide customer base servicing, customers in New York and California, Chicago, and still all the while, serving our local market as well. But much of what we do now is completely different than back in the day. It's no secret that commercial printing is kind of really diminished in its size and scope. And so I consider ourselves more of a visual marketing company now, focusing on in-store retail, consumer packaging, loyalty marketing, omni-channel marketing, those kinds of things. And so it's been an exciting ride, and in the last 5 years, I've had the benefit of having my son Austin join us, and so now he's third generation in the company, and his role is to really handle all the operational aspects of it, the staffing, the scheduling, and all that part of it. And I'm more on the P&L side, the vision side, strategy, and that's kind of how we operate. We've got about 100 employees at the single location here in Sussex.
That's amazing. I love these stories about the second, third, and fourth generation in some cases that are taking the business that their ancestors formed and really taking it to different and higher levels, really growing it organically, growing by acquisition, et cetera. So congratulations on being able to do that and bring in the next generation successfully.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, honestly, printing, hasn't been known for being a very sexy and appealing industry to be in. And I think for the most part, as an industry, we don't do a good job of marketing ourselves to the next generation and to the younger people coming up in business. And, but I think we've done a good job of transforming our company to be kind of leading edge of technology, kind of a white glove operation. And you walk in here and it's a clean operation. It's a lot of digital print processes and finishing processes. We incorporate a lot of technology into what we do. So I guess you could say this isn't your father's printing business.
That's for sure. No doubt. Yeah, I've said it 100 times on the podcast, Todd, that technology and the confluence of technology and putting ink on paper, when you put it all together, it's a pretty interesting combination, even for young people that are thinking about what their career path should look like and whether print is part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's important. It's kind of a double-edged sword because on the one hand, I think with all of the technology that's emerged and the shortcuts that we've taken from going from concept to printed piece, a lot of the craft of the whole process has been, taken out of the equation and fallen by the wayside. And so that part of it's sad. But on the flip side, there's so many incredible things now that are happening in our industry that are really exciting. It's still very much a capital intensive business. We haven't figured that out, how to produce the work with less capital, but it's more exciting now maybe than it was, 20 years ago when you look at it from that standpoint, all the digital applications and automation, robotics, AI as well. So much good stuff to be had.
And I think some people in the industry, not the owners of the businesses like you, but some folks that work in it are a little afraid sometimes about technology, especially robotics and automation, that somehow that's going to replace their jobs. But in my view, it makes the company more efficient and maybe creates opportunities for those same people to rise up and do interesting things that are safer, take out some of the repetitive tasks on the floor and do some pretty cool stuff.
I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think the key to the whole part of that is really getting your employees involved in the purchasing decisions with regard to all of those new investments in technology, robotics, automation, running multiple machines at the same time, cross-training. If they're part of the decision-making process, the planning process, the staffing process, we find that they embrace it. And it's no secret that there's a shortage of workers out there. So, if you can incentivize an employee to take on more work, do more tasks, learn more things, it creates a growth path for them in the sense that the more that they learn and the more that they're able to do and the more productive they are, the more that they can grow. So it's not about somebody coming in and taking over their job. It's really about, hey, how can we give you the resources that you need to do your job better? And how can we cause you to grow in your position?
Yeah, and that growth path is sometimes difficult to chart, but it's also difficult to get people in the door to do those less fun, so to speak, and repetitive tasks of lifting and twisting and working hard all day like that. When meanwhile, if you could automate some of those things and have them do, different tasks that are a little bit more intellectually challenging, they might be a little more satisfied at work and probably make more money at the same time.
I completely agree with that. And like I said, it goes back to the fact is that our industry really doesn't do a good job of exposing, potential employees to all the possibilities that are out there.
Right. And in addition to those investments that you're making, I know we talked a little bit about some of the investments that you've made on the packaging side of the business. I'd love to hear a little bit more about it.
Yeah, and that's been a really interesting ride for us because from day one that we started in business, we've been more of a retail advertising type of company. As I mentioned, my dad started the company as a graphic design studio, providing graphic visual design services for commercial printed products. And, so we produced those materials for years now. And a few years back, I would say about 8 years ago, we had a couple local folding carton packaging design firms approach us for the task of producing prototypes. So really short run packages that they would use to go to their customers, their CPG clients, with a new product that's going to market, but they need to do a photo shoot or a focus study group, or they need to have these launch, materials for the sales reps out in the field. And so we were able to produce those prototypes on our existing, printing presses, die cutters, and finishing machines. And we've done that successfully over the years. That about 5 years ago, we said, hey, we have all the pieces of the puzzle here to actually produce folding cartons and packaging on a much bigger scale. So why not go to market and become a packaging printer as well as kind of a retail advertising printer? And so that's what we did. And it's been a really interesting ride. It's just the challenge is that our mindset had to shift from being, hey, we're a retail advertising company to, hey, now we're a manufacturing company producing folding cartons, which involves chain of custody and you've got to document the processes. You've got safety processes, safety initiatives that are involved, good manufacturing practices that you have to implement as well. And so it's been kind of an interesting transition and a learning process for us. But really, that's where we see the future in print for us, and the great opportunity is packaging. And that's one of those areas that's not going to, fall by the wayside. It continues to grow and expand.
Well, people forget, that printing is not just newspapers, right? It's a heck of a lot more. And no matter how much you claim that printing is falling off, I think people are thinking about newspapers and certain segments in commercial, but packaging is here to stay. You're not going to be able to buy food or ship things by Amazon or ship things by Target.com or anybody else without packaging.
Well, and I think a lot of it too involves, the bling aspect of it too. If we're producing a folding carton for a product that sits on the shelf of a store, and we can embellish that with specialty coatings or foils, and we can design that package in a way that it's more impactful and it's going to draw more attention, then our customers are willing to spend the money on those value-added components. You think of toothpaste, on the shelves, how, many years ago, I don't know which manufacturer it was Colgate or Crest, they produced some cartons that had, shiny foil boxes and their products were flying off the shelves. Well, before you know it, all of the toothpaste manufacturers were producing them the same way because of the proven results that made. So, we really view ourselves as kind of a boutique printer, and we're always looking for ways to kind of add value to, our customers' products, whether it's with embellishments or special papers, special coatings, maybe unique structural designs, anything that's going to create more visual impact, to the end products. That's kind of what we're all about.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about packaging, in my view, is that, for an investment, consumer brand in particular, but even commercial brands, really establish the value of that product by the package that they use. You've got some really high-end customers that are featured on your website, like Macy's and L'Oreal, among others. I mean, if not for the packaging that you guys do, I think the value proposition of the product that's contained in the packaging would really, wouldn't really be enhanced quite the same way with less, prominent packaging, so to speak.
Well, and then there's other things that have kind of emerged in recent years in our culture. About 5 years ago, I never heard the term unboxing, right? In recent years, you've heard the term unboxing experience. And so now there's a whole movement out there revolving around the unboxing experience as a consumer. And so everyone is seeing the value in a product that is packaged nicely, presented in a nice way, and it is an experience. And so we like to share with our customers that if you work with us, it's the experience that we're selling. We're not just selling, the printed component, but we're also selling the opportunity and the experience to work with us to help you achieve your goals in a way that's very comforting, refreshing, in a way that's going to really make you happy. The other area too that we've seen a lot of growth is in the area of influencer marketing. So there's some really elaborate kits, product launch kits, marketing kits where maybe we've only produced 50 boxes or 50 kits, but those boxes are sold to clients for maybe between $300 to $500 a kit. And it's all about getting into the hands of influencers so now they can unbox it, and then share that with the world, with their circle of influence. And that's a market that maybe didn't exist 10 years ago, right? So a lot of what we do is promotional marketing, influencer kits as well. Very visual, very boutique, and just really a lot of fun to work on.
I can imagine. But I love the way you described it. It's the boutique experience, and working with Color Ink is that boutique experience. I can appreciate that. We're not here to talk about our firm, but we take that pretty seriously as well, because you want each of your customers to feel like they're walking into a boutique or working with a boutique firm that really understands what they're trying to accomplish from a value standpoint and a goal standpoint. and what you do in terms of the unboxing experience or creating the embellished packaging really is central to what they're trying to achieve.
Well, that's exactly right. And I think one of the issues we run into in our marketplace is that the buyers that we work with or the project managers who are our customers, they're tasked with a lot of things, and many times they have to wear a lot of hats, and they're always, over budget, and they don't have enough time, and they're always experiencing a high level of stress in their job. And so if we can just provide comfort and assurance and really make the experience for them as pleasurable as possible, we're selling that as well. And so that's what we're really all about. And it's sad because in our industry there's a lot of merger and acquisition activity. Private equity is really involved in swallowing up a lot of the small privately owned companies. And what we're finding is that the bigger the printing company, and if it's not kind of independently owned, it's really hard to have that same level of experience, right? So the bigger the company, the more difficult it is oftentimes to work with them. So we take pride in the fact that we're relatively small and family owned, and I think everyone absolutely loves what they do here.
Well, I can imagine. And you've got a number of long-term employees that have been with you for quite a while as well, right?
Yeah, I think one just celebrated his 35th year here this last year. So yeah, we're an aging group of people. There's no secret there, but we also have just a young, a good supply of younger people in the mix as well, who are bringing forward fresh ideas and enthusiasm, and it's a good mix of people.
Todd, in terms of this boutique experience, if you're a brand, you're an up and coming brand of a consumer product, what would you recommend to that brand in terms of how to work with Color Ink and how to explore this experience or creating this experience through packaging? How does it all work?
Yeah, so really it comes down to we just have one person as the face of the organization with each client. So no matter who you are, your conduit to our organization and everything that goes on here is primarily through one individual. And the reason we do that is there's a sense of pride and ownership, is that individual is going to be accountable for every step of the way with every project. So in other words, if you're the customer and you come to us and you want a project done, we don't hand you off to an estimator who estimates the product or project and then pass you on to a project manager and then to our scheduling department and then to our shipping department and then to our billing department, because then there's a lot of printing or finger pointing that goes on if everything goes south and things don't happen quite as planned. So we really identify one person who's going to be that face of the organization to our customers. And obviously, if things don't go as planned and there needs to be, management to intervene and get involved, we can do that. But that just helps make that experience so much better. Just that level of accountability, knowing that one person is kind of in charge, more of a concierge for that customer every step of the way.
That's another great aspect of going to a boutique. You get the concierge experience, and that's really what you need in terms of making the journey for the customer simpler, where you bear the burden, not the customer. Is that a good way to put it?
It is. And, and I think the other thing we do is we also incentivize those internal people as well. I mean, they're compensated. They get a commission on every dollar that's billed for that client. So, so we compensate them as well. And so they have skin in the game, and so they take pride in the work they do, and they know that that their personal livelihood is tied to the success of that customer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and ensuring that the customer journey is simple and there aren't a lot of barbs along the way.
Yes.
And lastly, Todd, what are you seeing with technology and how, putting aside the technology that you see on the production floor, but in terms of that concierge experience, maybe share a little bit about what Color Ink has done to use technology to simplify that experience.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the most recent things that we've done is the idea of A customer comes to us and they want a display produced, and we need to produce a rendering of how that display is going to look in a store. In the past, it's taken hours just to create one, illustrative rendering, because a graphic designer has to go into Adobe and either use Illustrator, Photoshop, or the combination of those things. And that could take hours. That could take, a day, 2 days, whatever. Well, now what we've been doing is we've been allowing AI to generate images with just a few prompts to get us, so we're at about 75% of the way there. And then once we have that AI generated image, we can go in there and modify it and customize it and adjust it to our liking. And so it's taking what used to be like 8 to 10 hours of work down to just a couple hours. So that's just one example of how we're really working in this new world of AI and technology. And what we're finding is that our customers are actually really more wowed by these images, because what AI is coming back with on these AI generated renderings is like incredible. I mean, really the level of detail, sophistication, it's very impressive. So, and I know there's many other ways that we can use AI, whether it's in lead generation or, our sales and marketing materials, our communications with our clients, but we're just scratching the surface. But I really see that as being something that's going to really revolutionize business in general, in the next few years.
No doubt. Yeah, and I think it's going to become more and more important, for sure.
Yep, indeed.
No doubt. Well, Todd, thank you so much for introducing ColorInk today. Look, all someone has to do is check out your website, which I want you to talk about in a second, and they'll be impressed by the brand names that they see and the packaging that they'll see, among other things, among the other services that you offer. Tell folks that might listen to the podcast where they can find you and what's the best way to connect to have that discussion.
Yeah, you can find us online at colorink.com. I really recommend, I think it's within the first page or near the bottom of the first page, there's actually a video tour of our facility that takes about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, but it really gives you a good visual overview of the company, and it kind of exposes you to the technology and the boutique nature of our firm. But then also, I think on that same page, you're able to go down below and book a conversation. So just giving us your basic contact information. And if you think you might be a good fit for ColorInk to do business with us, we'd love to hear from you and make that connection.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for a great discussion today, Todd. And just to refresh for folks that may have just joined us or joined in the middle, this has been Todd Meissner, who is the president of ColorInk in Sussex, Wisconsin, and Milwaukee as well. And again, thanks so much for a great discussion and really hitting on, not only the value proposition that ColorInk brings, but that concierge experience and boutique experience that you can provide to your customers.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
My pleasure. So just signing off, this is Chris Santomassimo from OGC Solutions, one of the hosts of the Think Factory podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining.